The night began with an atmosphere thick with anticipation, a sense that something special was about to unfold on the hardwood. Fans filled the arena with restless energy, cheering every warm-up shot and chanting for their favorite stars. This wasn't just another regular season contest, it had the feeling of a statement game, the type of battle that could define early momentum for both teams. From the opening tip, it was clear that both squads came determined to showcase their firepower, their grit, and their ability to seize control under pressure. Golden Hopes entered the game with a wave of optimism. Supporters had been talking all week about the team's potential to shock the league, and by the time the ball was tossed into the air, every eye was fixed on the players in blue and gold. The first notable moment came swiftly. Al Harper rose confidently behind the arc, the defense slightly sagging, daring him to take the shot. Without hesitation, he launched a deep three-pointer. The ball sailed through the air, the crowd holding its breath, before it splashed through the net with a satisfying bang. Harper's shot set the tone early, announcing that this would be a night where no player was afraid of the spotlight. As the clock wound down toward the final seconds of the first quarter, the energy only intensified. With defenders draped all over him and little time to maneuver, Jimmy Butler showcased why he is revered as one of the league's ultimate competitors. He took the ball near the wing, leaned into contact, and banked in a dramatic shot right as the buzzer sounded. The crowd erupted, Butler's teammates swarmed him, and the scoreboard reflected a narrow advantage as the quarter came to a close. The drama of the moment wasn't just about the points, it was about the confidence it instilled. Every player now believed that they could dictate the pace of the game. But the fireworks were far from over. On the very next possession, Moses stepped into the spotlight. Known for his raw strength and untapped athleticism, he received a pass in the lane, gathered his footing, and hammered down what might have been the most electrifying dunk of his career. The force of the slam sent shockwaves through the building, and even his opponents couldn't help but acknowledge the sheer power of the play. The referees whistled for a hard foul, but Moses absorbed the contact with ease, roaring in triumph as fans leapt to their feet. In that instant, he wasn't just another player. He was a beast, a symbol of dominance that demanded respect from everyone on the floor. Buddy Hield then provided his own answer at the close of the first period. With just seconds remaining, he found himself in rhythm, his defender slightly out of position. Rising with his smooth shooting motion, he drilled a crucial shot that pushed his team's tally higher. By the end of the quarter, Hield had notched 8 points, giving the Warriors a slight edge. His confident scoring touch ensured that the game remained balanced, a tug-of-war between stars, each refusing to allow the other side too much breathing room. The narrative of the quarter wasn't only about offense, though. Defense became equally significant as the minutes ticked away. Anthony Davis anchored the paint, using his size and instincts to disrupt drives and alter shots. At the same time, Russell Westbrook played with his trademark ferocity, hounding ball handlers and forcing them into mistakes. At one pivotal moment, Westbrook's hustle disrupted a passing lane, and Al Horford capitalized by snatching the loose ball. Jaylen Brown immediately picked it up, firing a lead pass to his teammate streaking down the court, who converted it into a quick dunk. The sequence emphasized how great defense often sparks the most exciting offensive plays, igniting both the bench and the crowd. By the midpoint of the opening half, it was clear that this would be a game dictated not just by star power but also by precision and execution. The Warriors struggled with occasional sloppiness in their ball handling, an issue compounded by the absence of Jimmy Butler's steady presence when he wasn't on the floor. Butler, after all, has long been a stabilizing force, the kind of player who not only scores but also organizes the team with his leadership. In his brief absence, turnovers crept in, allowing the Celtics to pounce. The highlight reel continued to grow with every possession. Moses once again delivered a thunderous dunk, sending defenders sprawling as he carved through the lane. Moody drew a foul while sinking a tough floater, earning a three-point play the hard way. Each possession seemed to deliver another memorable snapshot, whether it was a contested jumper, a blocked shot, or a clever assist that threaded the defense. At one point, Draymond Green's defense forced a turnover that swung momentum sharply. Even when the Celtics threatened to extend their lead, the Warriors clawed back with timely shots and relentless hustle. By the time the first quarter ended, the crowd felt as though they had already witnessed an entire game's worth of highlights. The scoreboard reflected only a slim margin, but the intensity on the court suggested that both sides were ready for a marathon. From Harper's opening triple to Butler's buzzer-beating bank shot, from Moses's rim-rattling dunk to Hield's clutch jumper, the stage had been set for a battle of willpower, resilience, and brilliance. This was basketball at its finest, the kind of start that promised the night was only going to get better. As the teams returned to the floor for the second quarter, the atmosphere inside the arena felt heavier, almost as if every spectator knew the next stretch of basketball would shape the rest of the night. The first 12 minutes had already delivered fireworks, but now came the test of endurance. Who could sustain the energy, execute under pressure, and build a cushion before halftime? The Celtics, buoyed by a few timely defensive stops, looked determined to assert themselves. The Warriors, meanwhile, had no intention of backing down, their veterans and young guns blending flashes of brilliance with gritty determination. The quarter opened with a defensive masterclass from Al Horford. At 38 years old, some might have assumed that his best days were behind him, but Horford reminded everyone why he remains one of the league's most respected veterans. Reading the floor like an open book, he cut off a passing lane, secured possession, and immediately pushed the tempo with a long outlet pass. The ball soared across the court into the waiting hands of a teammate, who finished with a decisive dunk. The crowd roared, and the Celtics bench rose in unison, rallying behind their elder statesman. Horford wasn't simply contributing, he was dictating the flow of the game. But the Warriors quickly countered. Buddy Hield, whose shooting touch had already been felt in the opening quarter, once again made his presence known. At first glance, he appeared hesitant on a relocation three, passing up an early look as his defender scrambled to recover. But Hield, ever the tactician, reset himself, drifted to a better spot, and calmly drained a deep triple. The shot wasn't just about 3 points, it was about timing and confidence. The Warriors needed a response, and Buddy delivered with poise. The game's physicality intensified as both squads sought to establish dominance in the paint. Every drive seemed to end with contact, every rebound contested with ferocity. On one possession, Spencer Dinwiddie found himself isolated near the top of the key with the shot clock dwindling. With only 3 seconds left, he rose for a difficult pull-up jumper, sinking it over an outstretched hand. The shot drew a collective gasp from the crowd, the kind of bucket that silences doubters and reminds everyone of the razor-thin margins between great defense and unstoppable offense. Moments later, Horford once again put his stamp on the game. Positioned near the rim, he executed a flawless alley-oop finish, soaring higher than anyone expected for a man of his years. The slam restored a double-digit lead for the Celtics, sending the building into chaos. Fans waved their arms, the Celtics bench exploded with energy, and commentators marveled at Horford's ability to roll back the clock. With the scoreboard flashing a 27-point cushion at one point, it looked as though Boston might run away with the contest. Yet the Warriors refused to fold. They clawed back possession by possession, refusing to let the Celtics' dominance dictate the storyline. Buddy Hield again rose to the occasion, this time sinking a nearly impossible three-pointer over relentless defensive pressure. The comparison to Damian Lillard wasn't far-fetched. Buddy's range, confidence, and shot-making under duress mirrored some of the league's most elite guards. His creativity on the perimeter kept the Warriors afloat, even as Boston's defense swarmed with double teams and traps. Defense, however, soon shifted momentum again. Buffalo, a role player not always known for flashy plays, came up with an incredible steal, stripping the ball cleanly and pushing in transition. With 5 seconds to work with, the Warriors turned defense into offense, and Draymond Green showcased his patience by passing up a contested three in favor of a clever drive and finish at the rim. The sequence embodied Golden State's resilience. When the outside shots weren't falling, they relied on hustle, unselfishness, and smart decision-making. Still, Horford wouldn't be denied. Late in the quarter, he executed a vintage move inside, using a shot fake and a quick pivot to draw contact and finish through a foul. The and-one play had the crowd chanting his name, reminding everyone why he was once considered one of the league's premier big men. His double-double presence loomed large, anchoring both ends of the floor. By this stage, Horford had not only energized his teammates but also demoralized his opponents, forcing them to reckon with his craftiness and experience. The Celtics' defensive scheme also began to suffocate the Warriors. Active hands disrupted passing lanes, double teams trapped ball handlers, and help defense rotated with textbook precision. At one pivotal moment, a Celtics defender deflected a pass, and within seconds the ball was whipped across the court for a highlight reel assist that led to another emphatic finish. The unselfish play brought the crowd to its feet, and the scoreboard reflected the cumulative impact. The Celtics had already drained their 123rd three-pointer of the season, a testament to their spacing and ball movement. And then came Steph Curry, the master of momentum swings. With Boston threatening to bury Golden State, Curry delivered one of his signature sequences. First, he grabbed a defensive rebound, weaving past opponents with a behind-the-back dribble that left fans gasping. Without breaking stride, he darted into the lane and finished a layup through traffic. The move was equal parts artistry and audacity, reminding everyone why he remains the most electrifying player in basketball. Moments later, Curry added another highlight, hitting a fadeaway jumper with two defenders draped over him, the ball barely leaving his fingertips before the buzzer sounded. But Curry wasn't finished. As halftime approached, with the clock winding down, he launched a shot from well beyond mid-court. The ball arced through the air, seemingly destined for the rafters, before dropping cleanly through the net. The crowd erupted, stunned and ecstatic, as Curry jogged calmly back to the bench. His teammates mobbed him, laughing in disbelief at the alien-like range of their leader. It wasn't just a basket, it was a declaration that no lead was safe, no distance too far. When Steph is on the floor, the impossible becomes reality. The second quarter closed with a flurry of action, Derek White muscling his way to an and-one layup, Tatum slicing through defenders with a Euro step, and Schroeder saving a loose ball that turned into an unexpected assist. The Celtics had dominated stretches, the Warriors had answered with brilliance, and Curry had once again bent reality to his will. As both teams headed to the locker room, the arena buzzed with the electricity of what they had just witnessed. The first half had been a tug-of-war of highlights, adjustments, and relentless competition. With 2 quarters left, the outcome remained uncertain, but one thing was undeniable. This was basketball at its most captivating. Halftime provided only a brief pause in the drama. As the players returned to the court, sweat dripping and eyes sharp with determination, the tension inside the arena was palpable. Both teams had traded highlight after highlight in the first half, but now the question loomed larger: who would seize control? The third quarter often decides the fate of a contest, and both coaches had likely emphasized adjustments in the locker room: better execution, fewer turnovers, sharper defense. With the scoreline still tight despite Boston's bursts of dominance, the Warriors knew that one big run could flip the game entirely. The Celtics struck first, continuing to ride the steady brilliance of Al Horford. Early in the period, he caught the ball at the top of the arc, faked a pass to freeze the defense, and then drilled a clean three-pointer. The shot reaffirmed his impact. No longer just a presence in the paint, Horford was stretching the floor, forcing Golden State's big men into uncomfortable defensive assignments. The Warriors' bench groaned as the Celtics pushed their lead slightly wider. But Jonathan Kuminga quickly answered. Golden State's coaching staff made a conscious decision to run their offense through him, feeding the young forward in the post. Isolated one-on-one, Kuminga showcased his physicality, backing down his defender before spinning into a thunderous dunk. The play injected energy into his teammates and reminded fans why the Warriors have placed such faith in his development. Each time Boston tried to build separation, Golden State countered with youthful vigor and boldness. The defensive intensity picked up dramatically. Draymond Green, barking instructions and orchestrating rotations, became the heart of Golden State's resistance. He closed out aggressively on shooters, slid into passing lanes, and even took a charge that left the crowd buzzing with appreciation for his willingness to sacrifice his body. On the other end, Jason Tatum attempted to impose himself, slashing into the lane with his signature Euro step. But every drive met resistance. Whether it was Kuminga's verticality or Moses's physical presence, nothing came easy. The game then tilted into a battle of stars. Steph Curry, sensing momentum, began his assault on the scoreboard. First, he curled off a screen, catching and firing a deep three before his defender could even contest. The net barely rippled, and the building erupted in awe. A few possessions later, Curry drew 2 defenders near the baseline, only to pivot and sink a ridiculous fadeaway jumper as the shot clock expired. It was pure magic, Steph bending the game to his rhythm, dragging his team back into contention almost single-handedly. Still, the Celtics responded with team-oriented precision. Derek White continued his strong performance, slipping behind the defense for a crafty layup plus a foul. Moments later, Marcus Smart fired a cross-court pass to an open shooter, who buried a corner three to restore breathing room. Each Boston possession seemed designed to stretch Golden State's defense to its limits, probing for mismatches, exploiting lapses. The Warriors, though, never collapsed, staying close enough to threaten with every possession. Then came a sequence that felt like the turning point of the quarter. With just under 5 minutes left, Curry corralled a long rebound, pushed the ball up the floor, and found Kuminga streaking down the wing. Without hesitation, Curry lobbed the ball high, and Kuminga soared, catching it midair and slamming it home with authority. The arena shook as Warriors fans roared, sensing the momentum shift. On the next play, Curry himself drilled another deep three, cutting the deficit to single digits. Suddenly, what had looked like a comfortable Celtics lead had evaporated, and Golden State smelled blood. Boston, however, refused to fold. Tatum responded with a silky mid-range jumper, shrugging off tight defense. Horford, still spry, grabbed a crucial offensive rebound and converted a putback. The Celtics' composure under pressure was impressive. They didn't panic when Curry caught fire, instead doubling down on fundamentals. Every possession mattered, and every veteran on the floor seemed to understand the weight of the moment. As the clock ticked toward the final minutes of the third, the game transformed into a duel between Curry and Boston's collective effort. Curry dazzled with a behind-the-back dribble into a step-back three, sending his defenders stumbling and the crowd into hysterics. Yet on the very next trip, Boston answered with smart ball movement, culminating in a dunk that silenced the momentum. It was basketball at its purest, a back-and-forth exchange of brilliance, neither side yielding an inch. Defensive plays also defined the quarter. Westbrook, often criticized for inconsistency, delivered a vintage moment, stripping the ball clean from his opponent and sprinting coast to coast for a contested layup. The sequence reignited his teammates, proving that hustle plays could swing momentum just as effectively as highlight shots. Meanwhile, Boston's Derek White absorbed a hard foul on a drive, stood up defiantly, and calmly drained his free throws. These gritty moments, while less glamorous than Curry's fireworks, were equally vital in shaping the narrative. The most electrifying play of the quarter came with under a minute remaining. With the shot clock winding down, Curry danced on the perimeter, two defenders closing in. From several feet beyond the arc, he launched a rainbow three. Time seemed to freeze as the ball soared, then dropped cleanly through the net. The crowd exploded, fans leaping to their feet as Curry jogged back with his trademark grin. It was the kind of shot that defies logic but defines greatness. With that basket, the Warriors had clawed all the way back, setting the stage for a tense final quarter. As the buzzer sounded to end the third, the scoreboard told the story of a game hanging in the balance. The Celtics clung to a narrow lead, their veterans steady and disciplined, while the Warriors surged behind Curry's genius and Kuminga's athleticism. The momentum had shifted multiple times, each swing adding layers to the drama. Both benches huddled with urgency, knowing the fourth quarter would demand everything they had left: focus, energy, and belief. The third quarter had been a masterpiece of competitive basketball, a clash of eras, with Horford's old-school steadiness contrasting against Curry's futuristic shot-making, a test of wills, with every possession contested like it was the last. Fans braced themselves for the final act, fully aware that the game's climax would be unforgettable. The horn sounded to begin the fourth quarter, and a hush seemed to fall over the crowd for just a moment before the tension rose again. Every spectator knew this was it, the last 12 minutes that would decide a game already filled with highlight reels, momentum swings, and emotional outbursts. The scoreboard reflected only a narrow margin, but the body language of the players revealed more. Determination etched on faces, shoulders squared with resolve, and eyes locked on the prize. This was not just about winning a regular season contest, it was about pride, resilience, and the statement each team could make about who they truly were. Golden State opened the quarter with urgency. Draymond Green, always the emotional leader, wasted no time in setting the tone. He rejected a three-point attempt in favor of a direct attack on the rim, muscling through defenders for a layup. It wasn't flashy, but it sent a message: the Warriors weren't going to settle, not in the final stretch. His bucket trimmed the lead, sparking the bench into cheers. Boston, however, struck back immediately. Jason Tatum, who had been relatively quiet in the third, stepped into the spotlight. With a defender crowding him, he executed a smooth crossover, drove into the lane, and finished with a high-arcing layup off the glass. The play reignited Boston's rhythm and drew a roar from the visiting fans in the building. Tatum's calm under pressure was the steadying hand the Celtics needed, a reminder that their superstar could deliver when it mattered most. The pace quickened. Both sides began trading blows like heavyweight fighters, neither willing to yield. Jonathan Kuminga used his athleticism to bully his way inside for another dunk, while Derek White countered with a dagger 3 off-ball movement that left the Warriors scrambling. Each possession carried the weight of the game itself. Every basket felt decisive, every turnover devastating. And then, as if scripted, Steph Curry once again tilted the axis of the game. Midway through the quarter, he ignited the crowd with a series of impossible shots. First came a step-back 3 from well beyond the arc, his defender's hand nearly blocking his vision. Nothing but net. On the next possession, he wove through 2 defenders with dazzling handles, pulled up just inside the line, and banked in a runner that had fans screaming in disbelief. Curry's rhythm was contagious. Every shot seemed to bend time and space, dragging his team closer to victory. Boston's defense tightened, determined to stop the bleeding. Marcus Smart, always fearless, threw his body into screens, fought over picks, and harassed Curry with relentless energy. On one possession, he stripped the ball clean and sprinted the length of the floor, only to be fouled hard at the rim. Rising to his feet, Smart pounded his chest, signaling that Boston wasn't going anywhere quietly. The Celtics' identity, toughness, grit, and collective effort was alive in that moment. As the clock wound down under 6 minutes, the scoreboard showed a deadlock. Every possession mattered, and the crowd sensed the tension, rising to its feet in anticipation of every shot. Al Horford, seemingly ageless, once again made his mark. With the Warriors' defense focused on Tatum, Horford slipped into space, received a pass, and calmly sank a mid-range jumper. It wasn't glamorous, but it was vital, restoring a 2-point cushion for Boston. But the Warriors kept responding. Moses, feeding off the energy of his earlier dunks, bullied his way into the paint for a tough finish through contact. His roar afterward echoed through the rafters, energizing his teammates. On the next possession, Curry spotted Kuminga in transition and delivered a no-look pass that led to yet another slam. The building shook as Golden State took its first lead of the quarter, and fans sensed that something historic might be unfolding. The drama reached its peak in the final 3 minutes. With the score tied, Curry attempted another deep 3, but this time it rimmed out. The Celtics seized the rebound, pushed the ball quickly, and Tatum capitalized with a smooth mid-range jumper. Boston led by 2, but the advantage felt fragile. On the next trip, Curry redeemed himself, sinking a contested 3 over 2 defenders that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The Warriors were up by 1, and the crowd exploded in a frenzy of noise. Timeout, Boston. The players huddled, sweat dripping, coaches drawing up plays that could decide the game. When they returned to the court, Derek White again proved to be the steady hand. Off a pick and roll, he slipped into the lane, absorbed contact, and converted a tough layup plus the foul. The 3-point play gave Boston the lead back, and their bench erupted with renewed confidence. The last minute was pure chaos, basketball distilled into its most dramatic form. With 48 seconds left, Curry dribbled into space, launched a 3 from several feet behind the arc, and nailed it. Golden State up by 2. The building shook like an earthquake. On the other end, Tatum attacked relentlessly, drawing a foul and sinking both free throws to tie the game at 110. The Warriors had the ball with 24 seconds to go, the game tied, and everyone knew who would take the final shot. Curry dribbled at the top of the key, the crowd chanting his name. Smart shadowed him step for step, the defense collapsing to prevent an open look. With the clock under 5 seconds, Curry crossed over, stepped back, and launched from deep. The ball arced high, spinning perfectly, before clanging off the rim. The rebound bounced into Horford's hands, but there wasn't enough time to push the ball up court. Regulation ended with the score tied, and the game headed to overtime. Overtime. Legends write their stories. The energy in the building was electric as the overtime period began. Fans were on their feet, voices hoarse from cheering, but unwilling to sit down for a game that had already surpassed every expectation. 5 more minutes of pure drama awaited, and the players knew the margin for error had evaporated. Boston struck first in the extra frame. Tatum, locked in, sank a tough jumper over Kuminga, restoring belief for the Celtics. Horford followed it up with a crucial block on Moses, showing once again that age had not diminished his defensive instincts. The Celtics led by 4, and their bench roared with encouragement. But Curry wasn't finished. On Golden State's next possession, he danced past his defender, drew contact, and sank a layup while crashing to the floor. The whistle blew, an and-one opportunity. He calmly drained the free throw, cutting the lead to 1. The sequence reignited Golden State's hopes, their fans screaming louder than ever. As the overtime clock dwindled, every basket felt monumental. Buddy Hield, quiet for much of the second half, stepped up with a timely 3, regaining the lead for Golden State. On the other side, Derek White responded with his own triple, a dagger that silenced the Warriors' surge momentarily. The game became a duel of shotmakers, each one upping the ante, each possession more dramatic than the last. With under a minute left in overtime, the game was tied once more. Curry had the ball at the top, facing suffocating defense. He dribbled, spun, and fired from deep, another miraculous 3 that sent the building into chaos. Golden State led by 3, and it felt as though the game was theirs. As the second quarter unfolded, the energy inside the arena seemed to grow with each possession. Both teams were beginning to find their rhythm, and what had started as a burst of individual brilliance was now transforming into a collective showcase of basketball mastery. The Warriors, true to their identity, leaned heavily on ball movement and spacing, creating lanes for their shooters while testing the resilience of the Celtics' defense. Meanwhile, Boston countered with their trademark physicality and discipline, refusing to allow Golden State's offense to flow unchecked. Al Horford once again reminded fans why experience is invaluable in games of this magnitude. At 38 years old, he played with the composure of a seasoned veteran, reading the defense and making sharp decisions. One particular possession saw Horford execute a flawless shot fake, drawing his defender off balance before powering to the rim for a bucket and a foul. The crowd roared as he pumped his fist in celebration, showing flashes of the old dominance that once made him one of the league's most reliable big men. Not to be overshadowed, Jimmy Butler responded with a trademark moment of grit. Driving hard into the paint, he absorbed heavy contact, stayed focused through the bump, and banked in a contested layup. The whistle blew, sending him to the line for a potential 3-point play. His expression didn't change, calm, determined, and laser-focused. For Butler, these kinds of moments weren't about flash but about setting a tone. His toughness echoed throughout the Celtics roster, energizing younger players and reminding everyone on the floor that nothing would come easy. On the other end, Stephen Curry provided a highlight that seemed to defy the laws of physics. As the shot clock wound down, he danced behind the arc, creating just enough space to release a deep 3-pointer from several feet beyond the line. The ball arced high and swished cleanly through the net, sending shockwaves through the arena. Curry's brilliance wasn't just in the shot itself, but in the casual way he executed it, like it was a routine jumper in practice. Plays like this had the power to break opponents' spirits, as no defense could truly prepare for his limitless range. The pace of the game intensified, with both teams trading blows like heavyweight fighters. Buddy Hield found his rhythm as well, knocking down contested threes even under immense defensive pressure. His footwork and quick release allowed him to create separation against defenders who knew exactly what he wanted to do but still couldn't stop him. One particular possession saw Hield drain a difficult triple over an outstretched hand, drawing comparisons to Damian Lillard with his composure in clutch shooting moments. On defense, Draymond Green was everywhere. His voice echoed across the court as he directed teammates, anticipated passing lanes, and delivered hard contests. At one point, he stole the ball cleanly from a driving opponent and quickly advanced it to a teammate for an easy fast break finish. Green's intensity wasn't measured just in statistics, but in the way he altered the game's flow with his presence. He relished the physical battles, embracing the chaos while ensuring the Warriors never lost their edge. As the half neared its conclusion, the game reached another crescendo. With just seconds left, Curry launched an audacious shot from beyond half-court. Time seemed to freeze as the ball sailed high above the hardwood before slicing through the net. The crowd erupted, stunned by yet another reminder that Curry truly belonged in a category of his own. Even opponents couldn't help but shake their heads in disbelief. The shot wasn't just 3 points, it was a dagger, a psychological blow that underscored the sheer brilliance of his game. The Celtics refused to be rattled, however. Derek White showcased his own poise, driving hard to his right and finishing through contact for a layup and a foul. Plays like these kept Boston within striking distance, preventing the Warriors from running away with momentum. White's contributions were a reminder of Boston's depth, where even role players could rise to the occasion and shift the tide of the battle. By halftime, the scoreboard reflected not just the raw numbers but the story of a contest defined by willpower and execution. Golden State thrived on its speed, precision, and shooting wizardry, while Boston leaned on grit, discipline, and the heart of veterans who had seen every possible scenario. Fans were left buzzing, knowing the second half would only elevate the drama further. By the time the fourth quarter began, the game had evolved into a true test of endurance. Every possession carried weight, every mistake felt magnified, and both teams leaned heavily on their stars to steady the ship. The Warriors, fueled by Curry's brilliance, pushed the tempo with their usual flair, while the Celtics countered with physicality and precision, making sure every cut, screen, and rebound was contested. Jimmy Butler emerged yet again as the emotional heartbeat of Boston. Early in the quarter, he drove fearlessly into traffic, taking on 2 defenders and somehow finishing off the glass while drawing a foul. The and-one opportunity wasn't just about points, it was a statement that Boston wasn't backing down. His teammates fed off his fire, clapping and shouting encouragement as they set up for the free throw. In moments like these, Butler's leadership transcended the stat sheet. But Golden State wasn't going to let the Celtics seize control so easily. Stephen Curry responded the only way he knew how, by delivering a dagger from deep. With defenders swarming, he used a subtle hesitation dribble to create a sliver of daylight, rose up from nearly 30 feet, and buried another long-range 3. The crowd erupted in disbelief, his teammates pumped their fists, and even Boston's bench slumped in resignation. It was yet another example of Curry's uncanny ability to silence any run with a single flick of the wrist. Draymond Green continued to be the defensive anchor, barking out assignments, switching onto bigger opponents, and contesting every shot that came near the rim. His energy was contagious, sparking hustle plays from teammates who fought for every loose ball. At one point, Green dove across the hardwood to keep a possession alive, an effort that led to a Klay Thompson three-pointer. Those are the kinds of plays that don't always show up in highlight reels but define the culture of winning. Boston answered through Al Horford, the ageless veteran who refused to fade into the background. He battled on the glass, boxed out younger players, and converted a crucial putback layup that kept the Celtics within striking distance. His steady presence helped calm Boston's offense when the pace threatened to spiral out of control. Horford's understanding of the game, when to slow things down, when to speed them up, was invaluable in this high-stakes environment. Buddy Hield added fireworks of his own. Despite tight coverage, he drained a contested 3 from the wing that sent the Celtics fans into a frenzy. His quick release and fearless shooting provided a counterbalance to Curry's perimeter brilliance. On the very next possession, he executed a subtle relocation after passing out of a double team, then received the ball back and buried another shot from downtown. Hield's confidence was unwavering, and his back-to-back buckets gave Boston renewed hope. But just when it seemed momentum might swing, Curry once again shattered illusions. With the shot clock winding down, he danced on the perimeter, toyed with his defender, and launched a step-back jumper from just inside half-court. The ball hung in the air for what felt like forever before swishing cleanly through the net. The arena exploded, commentators shouted in disbelief, and Curry turned to the crowd with a knowing smile. He lived for these moments, thriving under pressure in ways few players ever could. The Celtics, however, weren't done. Derek White made a crucial defensive play, stripping the ball cleanly from Klay Thompson on a drive, then racing down the floor for a transition layup. The hustle kept Boston alive, narrowing the deficit and injecting energy back into their huddle. Jimmy Butler reinforced the surge by hitting a mid-range jumper with a hand in his face, his calm demeanor masking the intensity of the moment. The game now resembled a heavyweight prizefight, two sides trading haymakers, neither willing to concede. Every basket was answered, every defensive stand was matched. The clock ticked down, and tension in the building reached a fever pitch. Fans held their breath with each shot, knowing a single play could tilt the balance. In the closing minutes, it became clear that this battle wasn't just about execution but about mental toughness. Who could remain poised under the brightest lights? Who could summon the will to rise above fatigue and deliver in the clutch? The answer would soon be revealed.